I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when I saw 3 neon vests drifting across my upper ridge like they owned the sky. No county truck on the road, no permit at the gate, just a yellow tripod with a glass eye and 2 tablets blinking in the dew. By the time I reached them, they were already telling me what would be built on my land. The heavy one nodded like we were old friends. Harper Engineering initial topo measurements. C4 expansion. Future site of a community pool and parking access. The younger one flipped open a folder and showed me a shiny color map that turned my hillside into puzzle pieces. Parcel C stamped across my mother's house. An access road slashed through the vegetable beds, a community lot laid over the slope. I mow every spring. I could hear cicadas, hear my boots in the dry grass, hear that slow click in the back of my head when something shifts from confusion to clarity. I told them what anyone would tell strangers holding rulers over their living room. You're on my land. You've got 30 seconds to leave, or I'm calling it in as the armed trespass. I didn't shout, didn't flex, didn't chamber the Remington on my shoulder, just counted my breath. They scrambled, dropped a tablet in the dirt, threw gear into the vans like gravity finally remembered them. And that should have been the end. Right. Except the heavy one leaned over the door and said, almost apologetic, they already filed something with the county. You should check your records. Yeah, that happened. The county recorder's office looks like a library where lives are rearranged with keystrokes. Last time I was there, 6 years back, they stamped my deed, and I walked out feeling like I had a handshake with the future. This time, the receptionist sent me to a room with no windows and a man named Greg, whose tie had lost the fight with his collar. He scrolled, shrugged, and said a string of words that didn't belong together. Administrative Transfer Code. B. Provisional Oversight by Green Peaks Reserve, HOA, pending verification of rightful ownership. In English, they'd parked my 10 acres under the HOA's umbrella while they clarified my title. I asked who challenged it. He clicked twice, said the HOA's legal department claimed my parcel was mistakenly excluded from a 2010 reservation, and maybe I was tied to an improperly recorded trust. I told him I bought it. Cash surveyed it. Myself paid every tax bill on time, and I wanted the filing packet. Names, signatures, maps, plus an internal audit started today. He could print the packet. The audit could take days, maybe weeks. You know what I mean. I left with a manila envelope and a knot under my ribs. Back home, the mailbox hung open like a broken jaw. Junk mail in the gravel, a torn copy of my land assessment from 2 years ago. The east gate latch twisted just enough to say someone didn't care. The trail cam gave me a silhouette in a windbreaker. A quick pair of hands rifling my box. No logo, no plates. Just the soft run of a person who thinks rules are for other people. I changed the locks. Added cameras, laminated signs that read, "Private land, not HOA jurisdiction. Trespassers will be prosecuted, and if it felt like overkill good, I'd rather be silly than sorry." 2 mornings later, my neighbor Rhonda called while I was filling up at the Sinclair. "Jack, there's a bulldozer on your property. I made the turn so hard the pump probably kept counting." Dust hung over the slope when I rolled in. A yellow dozer idled at the eastern fence blade low, like it was daring me. 2 hard hats dragged brush out of the creek. Another waved chalk over a line that cut straight through my vegetable patch. I didn't yell. I went inside, opened the safe, and carried the Remington back to the porch, bolt open, barrel up. That's when 2 sheriff's cruisers slid in with tires that knew the route. Deputy wheel in hand near his holster called out, "Jack, put the gun down, step away from the firearm." I told him they were tearing up my land. He said dispatch showed a temporary development authority under the HOA, and until a judge said otherwise, he couldn't remove them. File for an injunction. Behind him, one worker backed toward the dozer cab. Eyes off me for the first time. I laid the Remington on the porch railing pointed at the sky. Told Whelan I had survey markers, cameras receipts for every inch. He made the crew hold. The air felt like a wire pulled tight. And then, like it often does, the law told me to be patient while the blade kept humming. I played it his way, for now. Evidence doesn't get tired. I pulled a fresh card from my drone and watched the whole arrival. The dozer pushing through my north fence, one man. Clipping with bolt cutters, another, planting a sign that read, Future Community Amenity Zone. Timestamps don't lie. I sent everything to my lawyer, Daniel. Photos, video, a summary of the deputy's visit. By evening, he'd filed for an emergency injunction, and a judge hit pause on the dirt. By sunrise, someone had peeled the county order off my gate and taped up a glossy HOA notice, Community Improvement Initiative. Phase 1 authorized construction resumes 8 a.m. I didn't pull it down. I took a picture. That night around 2 a.m., my dog Mabel growled from deep in her chest. She doesn't bark at shadows. The shed cam glitched, then caught a figure slipping inside. The fireproof cabinet where I keep the deed survey. Maps zoning letters, pried and rifled. Nothing taken, just touched, just violated, as if the point was to make the paper feel less real. I called it in. The deputy nodded, said it looked like someone wanted specific documents. No kidding. By breakfast, I'd changed every lock again and set up an off-site backup so thorough they'd need to erase a server farm to make my life disappear. Then an email with no subject landed in my inbox. An address. One sentence, I'm not part of this. Please come alone. The office belonged to Foster and Lee, HOA counsel. The woman who cracked the door said her name was Jen Walker, paralegal for 5 years under Karen Worthington, the HOA president. She looked scared, but steady. They faked it, Jack. The rezoning request, the inclusion claim, the administrative transfer. She pushed a flash drive across the table. Screenshots, emails, voice memos. Karen told an engineer to expect physical resistance to turn any confrontation into a safety incident. She drafted a fake deed transfer using my escrow signature. I asked her what her angle was. She said conscience bills be damned. I told her she was a star witness now. She smiled like she knew and hated it. Daniel mirrored the drive, printed and indexed every file. The recordings alone could have singed paint. Karen laughing about bulldozing the hillbilly holdout, calling permits paperwork for peasants. We filed a lawsuit against the HOA Karen personally and Harper Engineering. Encroachment destruction, falsification of records, conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. And then, because sunlight is a tool, not a metaphor, I went public. A property rights podcast ran my story. HOA from hell. Colorado veteran faces land theft. The clip spread fast, and suddenly my inbox filled with neighbors and strangers who had seen some version of this trick. Not all of them fought. Most of them just paid or moved. One more twist showed up on my porch, wearing a windbreaker. And regret. Thomas Gardner, retired civil engineer and longtime board member, said Linda had them signing land use memos buried inside budget motions. Said my parcel never belonged to the plan, said he'd testify, and brought internal memos that read, proactive inclusion of adjacent undeclared parcels under the 2010 expansion mandate. My parcel in blue ink. The hearing wasn't a movie. The courthouse smelled like old carpet and tension, and the judge was the kind who didn't clap for speeches. Daniel laid out the bones clean. Deed taxes, surveys, timestamps, the emergency order that someone peeled off my gate. Then the witnesses. Jen told the room what she'd told me, voice steady, hands still. Thomas owned his part. I signed what I didn't read. I believed what I wanted to be routine. I was wrong. A forensic analyst pointed to the so-called deed of relinquishment and walked the judge through ink patterns, scanner artifacts, metadata. This document is a forgery. We synced my drone footage with Deputy Whelan's body cam and watched the dozer cross the line while I said the words people say. When the line in the dirt is not a metaphor, and the deputy said take it to court. The HOA's lawyer objected until he ran out of air. The judge invalidated the administrative claim on the spot. Revoked every permit tied to my parcel. Suspended Harper Engineering's license pending full review, awarded me $3.2 million, including punitive damages and legal costs, and referred Karen to the district attorney for fraud, falsification, and conspiracy. No one cheered. People just breathed like they'd been holding it a long time. Spring came late that year. I tore down the split-rail fence not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I hired a welder, veteran like me, who built a black iron gate with a backbone, a horizontal bar that reads private land, not subject to HOA, and under it, on a brass plaque hand-engraved, "Smile for the drones." I replanted the mulberry for my mother. The new one isn't as tall yet, but it'll get there. The money came in installments. After legal fees, I paid off the house, upgraded the solar, rebuilt the shed with insulation and locks that bite. Karen pled down. Fraud, obstruction, falsification. A sentence that looks long on paper and longer when the brunches stop. Harper folded. Thomas served as interim HOA president and then moved to dissolve the whole thing. Said it outlived its mandate and outspent its trust. Jen started a small firm helping homeowners fight back. I wrote the first review. 5 stars, helped me keep my land. Didn't get me shot, would hire again. And me. I sit on the porch in the mornings with coffee that stays hot. Because I pay attention now. Mabel at my feet whined in the pines, cars slowing at the gate to read the words out loud. Sometimes they wave, sometimes they stare. Sometimes. A stranger asks if the place is for rent, and I say, "Not unless you're a bulldozer." Then we charge double. That's my story told, as straight as I know how. If you think a pool and a parking lot can justify erasing a deed, say so. If you've ever watched a piece of paper try to steal a piece of your life, I want to hear it. Where do you draw the line between the good of the community and the rights of the person who mows the grass, fixes the fence, pays the taxes, and sleeps there at night? Drop your take in the comments. Push back if you disagree. Tell me what justice looked like on your street and what it didn't, because sunlight still works best when everyone brings a little of their own. You know what I mean.